Hello my friends and welcome to the Battletech community news. It has been a while since the last community news video, but there just hasn't actually been a huge amount of newsworthy things to sort of put one of these together, and they do take a lot of time to sort of put together and gather the information. So anyway, there is a lot to talk about now, so just going to go through everything that's going on around the community, mod pack news. We're going to talk about heavy metal, because people ask me what my opinion on heavy metal is, which I think differs quite a lot from perhaps what everyone else is saying, but we'll get into that. A little bit of speculation on Battletech 2. Yeah, you heard me right, Battletech 2. And I'll tell you why I think that's in the pipeline. And then we'll move on to the channel news last. So if you're not interested in the channel and you just want to hear the community news, then you can just you can skip that bit. I don't know why you would, but you can. So anyway, let us get started with our first topic. Let me bring it up here. Okay, so Battletech Extended. Harry, obviously the lead of the BEXCE team, had taken a break recently, but he's back on the case. And I just want to start here by saying, if your mod pack or mod is not covered in the community news, please drop me an email and establish contact with me, and I will put it up on here. If you're not reachable or I'm not aware of you, then you can't be in the community news. But anyway, getting back on track here. So Harry took a break, and I think all the mod packs at the moment are sort of in a holding pattern while we await heavy metal. But I have some updates here on what's going on. So first things first is you can download the version 1.7 update for BEXCE from the Discord. The Nexus version is still the 1.6 version, but you can download the 1.7 beta, which is mostly stable, from the BEXCE Discord. In terms of future BEXCE development, the idea is that BEXCE is going to have a long timeline with missions that extend, increase the day counter by maybe several months, maybe half a year or so on, deployments, etc. And part of that is that an alternative version of the Inner Sphere will develop, where the clans didn't invade, but the technological renaissance continues, and so all the new equipment that emerges in the Inner Sphere will release on its correct dates and so on, and the Inner Sphere will steadily get more advanced as time goes on. And Harry said that he personally had worked on over 130 mechs, variants from 3025 to 3057. They're not in the 1.7 beta yet, but they will be coming after the advent of heavy metal, and they will be released as time goes on, as time advances through the Inner Sphere, which helps to really add to the living world that we've created with Galaxy at War. So not only will the Inner Sphere develop from a feuding, warring standpoint, but also the technological level will develop as we carry along. The other thing is there are going to be some balance changes in BEXCE. We are, as a team, discussing them at the moment and talking about them now. I think we might be the first mod pack to look at evasion as something that we might nerf. So one thing that I proved with the Four Lights campaign is that evasion, even in the base game, evasion actually can become incredibly overpowered, to the point that the AI just has no clue what to do about you and barely ever shoots you, and it's a real problem. You know, once you really stack evasion, you get to a point where the AI just doesn't know what to do, and so we are perhaps looking to address that, and also perhaps looking to address some issues with the really meta mechs like the Firestarter and the Grasshopper that just are so much better than their contemporaries. How are we going to go about that is still very much in discussion, but it's interesting. So look forward to all of it. All of this stuff will be worked on and will come out some point after Heavy Metal. I think any mod packs are going to be releasing any new content before Heavy Metal is out. It just doesn't make any sense to. So that is where we are with BEXCE. Pretty interesting times ahead, and yeah, that's really going for this organic world and looking at changes to balance to allow the AI to actually give you a harder time, because as it stands, the evasion stacking meta kind of really neuters the AI, and we're not even using permanent evasion, we're using semi-permanent evasion, so you can actually chip away at the evasion more gradually, but I still think it's overpowered. So anyway, that's my opinion, but I'm just one small part of the team, so they have to decide. Obviously with my input, we all have to come to an agreement before we make changes, but that is what we're looking at with BEXCE. Okay, Roguetech has recently added Galaxy at War, but is very much, from what I understand, is very much in the holding pattern until Heavy Metal comes out. So I believe the latest version is still 1.6 compatible on the Nexus. So yeah, it's not much to add here, because we're waiting for Heavy Metal to come out, and then I think once Heavy Metal comes out, everyone will be in a mad dash to get their mod packs compatible and out the door. But still, Galaxy at War is huge. I mean, obviously Don, Gniver and I put a huge amount of work into it, so yeah, something that I worked so hard on. I'm not going to say it's bad. So it's in Roguetech now, and that's pretty cool, and you should probably enable it. I believe you can enable it in the installer, so yeah, have fun with that. Moving on. Battletech Advanced. I spoke to Bloody Doves about Battletech Advanced at length, and he is looking to put a rarity system into Battletech Advanced, so he's working on a quirk system as well. These are big things that are coming down the pipe. He's adding the Axeman, the Helipolis, the Emperor. There's content that he hopes to have released in the near future. In fact, I believe this weekend the Axeman will be added to Battletech Advanced. Once again, I think we're very much in the holding pattern here until Heavy Metal comes out. So yeah, that's where everyone is at the moment, and that's why there isn't as much news as there perhaps could be, but still a lot of things coming down the pipe. So a rarity system is quite an interesting, perhaps, difference to what BEXCE is doing, in that in BEXCE we're sort of working on release dates for various mechs, although we do, some mechs are rarer than the base game actually has a rarity system in it, but I think BTA is sort of looking for something a little bit more advanced and more interesting, and perhaps like custom shops and stuff. But we know that shops are changing in Heavy Metal. They are going to make shops more tied to tags, and you're going to actually be able to find things, and it's going to be less RNG, which is one of my biggest complaints about the shop system in the game, is that it's just totally random. And I could offer 50 million C-bills for an urban mech, and I could not find one in the original releases of the game, and then they had to add flashpoints and the ability to purchase the urban mech from the black market to sort of fix that issue. But that was just indicative of problems with the sort of highly random nature of shopping in Battletech. So yeah, all mod packs are in the holding pattern, but they all have aspirations for future features, which I think are quite interesting. So hopefully you guys find that interesting, and you're looking forward to these updates coming out once Heavy Metal is out the door. Okay, so moving on to the main topic, the unavoidable topic, and the one that's probably going to consume much of our time here. So everyone is waiting for Heavy Metal to come out before they update their mods and do compatibility work, and the features that they hope to bring will come with Heavy Metal or after it, and it may be several weeks after Heavy Metal until it's done. So there's a lot of hype around Heavy Metal, and so I'm going to start with the good stuff because I don't want to be negative. There are some really great things about Heavy Metal which I am looking forward to, like everyone else, and there's a lot of hype around the expansion. So shops being more tied into tags, so being more predictable, which means that, you know, if you want a particular thing, say I need an AC5 for some reason, then I will know which planets I can go to actually find one, instead of just hopping for months around planets, just randomly hoping to see the item I want. So that's very good. And there's tons of new weapons and tons of new mechs. But the thing is, if you've been modding your game, so I think Heavy Metal will bring a lot of good reviews and a lot of new players into the game, and a lot of content for people who don't mod. So in those terms, Heavy Metal is a fantastic expansion. But if you do mod, then you've played with pretty much all of the stuff coming in Heavy Metal already. The only things that are actually new to the scene that modders have not already added to Battletech is obviously the Bull Shark, the new mech, and the Coil Weapon. Everything else, including area of effect artillery, rotary weapons, etc., they already exist in various mod packs and in various mods. And, for example, if you wanted a Heavy Metal type experience right now, you could install BEXCE. Not BEXCE, but BEXCE, which is just vanilla plus. It just adds mechs, basically, and some weapons and so on. You could install that, and you could download custom ammo or something along those lines, and you could add the rotary weapons and the artillery and so on. And you could get a very similar experience minus the coil weapons and minus the Bull Shark. And I do really like the look of the Bull Shark. But my concern with the new expansion is not just that I don't feel like there's a huge amount of new content for people who mod, like you and I, but the balance of it. So all the new mechs are going to have quirks, and those quirks are actually quite powerful, quite cool. But none of the old mechs are going to get them. So the new mechs are going to have innate advantages that the old mechs are just not going to see, and that kind of creates a skewed meta. Likewise, there's been a lot of discussion about coil weapons. So my opinion on them is that they're going to be overpowered no matter what. The more I see them discussed, and on the streams, if you've watched the streams, you'll have seen that what coil weapons do is they seem to accumulate damage and heat over evasion chevrons. So if you've got a fire starter, you can generate 4 or 5 evasion chevrons on a move pretty easily. And so you'll add, say the coil weapon does 10 base damage, then you'll add 10 for every chevron, for example, and maybe 10 heat. So you'll end up with a weapon that does 60 damage, 10 base plus 10 for each chevron, and does like 60 heat to your mech. So what this does is it turns, because each individual weapon, because I think the large one was on stream, and the large one was, I think, 4 tons on stream. When they were showing them on stream, they showed only the large one, and it was like 4 tons. So you can only presume that the medium one and the small one are going to be lighter. They're going to be maybe 3 tons and 2 tons, or maybe 2 tons and 1 ton, or something along those lines. So they seem to be quite light weapons with massive heat build up and massive damage potential. And I can imagine if you could fit, so the large one's 4 tons, so let's say for argument's sake that the medium one is 2 tons, makes sense, and the small one is 1 ton. That would probably, HBS would probably do something along those lines, because that sort of makes sense. So imagine you get 4 or 5 of them on a fire starter, and then you run behind someone with 5 evasion tokens, and you could output 300 or 400 damage, maybe 500 damage. and you generate so much heat that you would shut down after. But does that really matter if you could just totally obliterate someone in one shot, guaranteed? And I also feel like heat exchangers, heat banks, and double heat sinks, but more heat banks and heat exchangers are going to have a profound impact on these weapons because of they're offsetting the huge damage potential with huge heat generation. But exchangers get exponentially better the greater the heat generation. So if one single coil weapon generates 60 heat and you've got like a 20% exchanger on there, you're going to slice 12 heat off that straight away. And you're going to have room for lots more heat sinks to offset the heat generation of these things. I'm concerned that they're going to be more powerful than medium lasers, and medium lasers are already the most powerful thing in Battletech and kind of skew the meta. And just sort of moving on from that, a lot of the other weapons that are being introduced, they were introduced because the problem with the Battletech tabletop was that they didn't want to go back and change anything. So what they tried to do is they tried to wipe the slate clean. So they introduced clans, and they made all the clan weapons much better than the original Inner Sphere weapons. And then they tried to create a load of replacement Inner Sphere weapons that were also much better. And so all the better stuff would be sort of balanced out. So things like ultra autocannons are, in many cases, just slightly less than twice as good as their original counterparts. But they wanted to buff autocannons because basic autocannons are trash, effectively. They're not great in HBS's Battletech, and they're not great in tabletop either. And maybe just nostalgia of ripping someone's head off with a big shot kind of clouds the old vision a little bit. So they tried to smooth out all the balance. But the thing is, a lot of these new weapons are seemingly going to be player only or limited to the player. There's going to be no mechs with coil weapons, for example. And that's going to be a huge buff to players. So that potentially could bring the game's difficulty down quite a bit, depending on how these are balanced. But just remembering that if they follow the tabletop, then these weapons are going to be competitive with clan weapons, which is going to make them a lot better than the current baseline. They're not going to introduce clan weapons as well, but my concern is that is a big rise in power between the quirks and the Inner Sphere tier 2, I think it's tier 2 weapons, which are designed to be competitive with clan against all the existing stuff now, which is the basic tier. So yep, those are my thoughts. So it's not all positive. It's sort of a mixed bag for me when it comes to heavy metal. But there's going to be beautiful looking mechs that HBS are going to look over them and give them polish. And when they add rotary autocannons and LBX weapons and so on, they're obviously going to do the animations properly and all that kind of thing. The mod versions of these weapons are a little bit hackish because they had to be. Obviously, modders don't really have full access to the code or the assets, so there's going to be a lot of polish and improvement there. And heavy metal is going to be a great expansion if you don't mod. But as someone who plays challenge runs and sort of loves trying to make things difficult for myself, I do worry about the balance a little bit. Moving on from something sort of tangent to heavy metal, apparently there is going to be some investment in multiplayer, and there's going to be a stream about it coming up, I think on the weekend, sometime tomorrow. If you're watching this today, which would be Friday in Norway, there's going to be a stream on multiplayer, and multiplayer has not seen any updates pretty much since the game released. So I'm hoping that heavy metal brings something for the multiplayer community, because they really need a multiplayer game is going to really struggle to get off the ground without community maps. I'm not sure that would be coming, to be honest. That would be my last guess, but that's unfortunate. But anything that they can do to enhance the experience and the compatibility and all that kind of thing, because people have had real trouble connecting to each other and all kinds of stuff like that, and it's just kind of been left. So yeah, I would tune into that stream and check out what they're gonna. Well, I'll be tuning in as well. Check out what's going on with multiplayer. Hopefully, some big changes and such for the multiplayer community. Hopefully, they revert the height accuracy bonus change, because in multiplayer that's actually a big problem, because it means that people who start because none of the maps are symmetrical. So if you start on the side of the map that's got the great big hill, and you stand on the hill, the accuracy bonus kind of is a huge advantage, and it offsets the fact that you're just kind of stood up there and not moving. So yeah, anyway, interesting times ahead. I am looking forward to Heavy Metal. Don't think that I'm not. I'm concerned about the balance, but we'll see. And it seems like all the modding community and everything is just hanging on the release of Heavy Metal on the 21st, I believe. I have some confusing messages about when it's coming out, whether it be the 19th or the 21st, but I believe it's the 21st. So yeah, we're looking forward to that, definitely. Okay, so just before I get into the channel news, I wanted to talk about Battletech 2, of all things. So it is said, so I guess I'll start this story right at the beginning. So I predicted a long time ago that Paradox was going to buy HBS, and the reason why was because so obviously I've studied the games industry my whole life. It's what I got my degree in, and they said that Paradox was going to do their quality and assurance, and I pressed, I can't remember who it was, but on stream I pressed at the time, say you know, what they would be doing, and they said that they would be fixing bugs, developing fixes for bugs, I believe was the phrase. And the thing is, at that point HPS and Paradox were competitors technically, and the last thing that you ever want is for your competitor, who also makes strategy games, to have your code. But Paradox obviously needed their code to do the things that HBS said that they were going to do. So I said at that moment that they were gonna merge, or basically Paradox was gonna buy HBS, because that does not happen unless the two businesses are coming together, because you don't want to hand a competitor your code. That's game over for you as a company sometimes, or it could be. I mean, it depends, but you know, effectively, you know, if you run KFC, you don't want to give the secret spice to a competitor unless they're not going to be a competitor anymore. But anyway, moving on from that, it's about insight into what they say and what they don't say. And if you have watched the streams that Mitch has done very carefully, you will note, as far back as before the first expansion, that he said that they were working on expansion, and they were also working on special project. And he said that, you know, various people were working on this special project. Now, at the time, Paradox were working on, we didn't know at the time, but Paradox were working on Vampire the Masquerade. And so I thought that it might be that, because it's not unusual for a satellite studio to support a parent company with some big release or whatever. The artists can help with the assets, or code will be passed over for quality assurance and checking and all that kind of thing can occur. But then, after the second expansion came out, Mitch continued to refer to the fact that they're working on a special project. Not directly, but just when asked about, you know, what people were doing that, he would say, oh, you know, Kiva is... So two examples I know of, Kiva is doing this, and, you know, she's also working on the special project. And there are a few other people that were sort of talked about in the same way, off the cuff. You know, you could just dismiss it in your mind if you weren't really paying attention to it. Now, it is said in the games industry that a games company is always working on two things. the next thing for their most popular game, because obviously they want to release stuff for their big popular games so that their audience carries on buying expansions or whatever, and their next game. These are the two things that they're always working on. But the next game that they might be working on may not necessarily be Battletech 2. It could have been something belonging to Paradox, or whatever, or some completely new IP. Now, what really triggered things for me is now we're here with the third expansion, Heavy Metal, and I love Mitch. He leaks information, but he doesn't realize he's doing it. Sorry, Mitch, but it's great for me because you know, I love this kind of stuff. So, you know, he once again mentioned that they were busy with Heavy Metal and this special, you know, the special project. I don't think he actually said special project, which is what he said the last few times. And you have to understand that these references are spread like 3 or 4 months apart. And I would almost want to dig through all the Twitch streams to sort of find them if they've not been deleted. But anyway, that would be tons of work, so I couldn't be bothered to go back and do it for this. But yeah, he's just sort of indicated that basically everyone in HBS at some point has been working on an undisclosed project. And in that time, Paradox have actually released all of the stuff that they were currently working on. But the way he mentions it is like it's always been the same project the whole time. So since Battletech came out, or about a month after it, they've been working on something non-stop, and it's not the expansions. And it has involved almost every core member of the Battletech team has been mentioned by Mitch at some point as being working on the special project. So, if you put all that together, it leads me to believe that they're working on Battletech 2, and they have been for a long time. And that they're not actually, or I don't believe that they're helping Paradox with anything directly, that they're actually working on their next big thing, which is Battletech 2. And the other thing which I've picked up is that they're looking to advance the timeline, whether via an expansion to Battletech, or whether Battletech 2 advances the timeline. Presuming that I'm right and Battletech 2 is in the pipe. Mitch has mentioned that if they were going to, you know, if there's going to be something in the future, then they would have to advance the timeline, right? That's his exact wording. But they also made changes to Battletech. In career mode, they changed the number of days, and they got rid of the directorate from career mode, and all that kind of thing. They did a lot of things that basically aligns the game with the Fourth Succession War. So, whatever comes next, be it another expansion or Battletech 2, it seems almost certain that that's going to involve the Fourth Succession War, or it's going to be about the Fourth Succession War, because there's just been too many changes that all point to that as a starting point. And then Mitch, once again, love Mitch, Leaky Mitch, perfect insider, if you listen to him very carefully. Him saying, well, you know, if he said, assuming that we make another expansion, so almost hinting here that there might not be one, but there might be, then we'd have to advance the timeline, right? I mean, that's exactly what he said. So if you don't assume that there's going to be another expansion, but you are advancing the timeline, then the only possibility that leaves is Battletech 2. It can't be anything else, right? You can't advance the Battletech timeline and not make a Battletech expansion unless you're making a second Battletech game. That's, you know, that's how the logic of that works. But if you are making an expansion, then you can advance the timeline. But the way his sentence was structured was, you know, assuming that we make one, then we'd have to advance the timeline. You know, why make that bit ambiguous, right? It's not necessary to make that bit ambiguous. You could just say, if we make an expansion or something, then we'll advance the timeline. But this word usage, which I'm reading a lot into here, suggests to me that they are going to advance the timeline. That bit is certain, but what bit is not certain is that whether that would occur in an expansion or not. And if you run that through your mind, if the answer is not, then it must occur in a new game. So anyway, those are my overwrought deep thoughts on that matter. So now you know. I hope you found that interesting and not too ranty. All the evidence is out there in the streams. If someone wants to go and crawl for it and find it again, it's all there. Mitch leaks it all. Mitch plays to reveal. Yeah, no, I love the team, but I definitely think that something's going on, and I think that something might be Battletech 2. When we'll see that, I have no idea, but you heard it here first. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to the channel news. So if you're not interested in the channel news, then please feel free to disappear. So I have managed to keep up with all the video releases and all the Patreon bonus videos. Hopefully, if we can get some more support, then I can get some more videos out there, because I actually have a lot of content in reserve right now. Spaceland and Sanctus Reach, and Battletech Advanced content, and obviously, no one in well, I'd like to feel like no one. Well, hopefully, no one who's a video gamer, who's really loves a video game or video games, is really getting into YouTube for the money. But you do have to live. To keep doing this job forever, it has to pay at least enough to actually for you to carry on doing it full time. So this is my way of hopefully driving support, and then I can get more content out for you, and that in turn means that I can keep making videos forever instead of finding a real job. Now it looks like I'm going to be stuck in Norwegian school for at least a year, if not a year and a half. So I just had a massive Norwegian test actually, where I had to speak Norwegian to an examiner and all that kind of thing, and learn that Norwegian is just the craziest language. It's very it's all over the place, having to deal with word genders, and it melts my brain, so I don't even really want to talk about it, but it's a lot of stuff, and basically in order to find proper employment over here, I need a B2 in Norwegian, which is the sort of intermediate to advanced level of Norwegian proficiency, and I currently have an A1, and I'm on the A2 track, which it goes A1, A2, B1, B2. So until jeg snakker norsk, it's going to be very difficult to find a real job. But my wife is actually supporting me in doing this, and also doing my school, so I can return to being a computer engineer instead of working in a supermarket or whatever, if this doesn't work out. But I hope that it works out, so I can keep making content for you guys. In terms of what's coming up next, I'll probably do some sort of challenge campaign with Heavy Metal, get our hands on some Coil Weapons and see how far we can take them. I'm actually thinking that we might be able to load up a turkey or a chicken with some coils and see truly if they're so broken that they could make those mechs viable. Because one of the funny things about Heavy Metal is they're saying that they wanted to make lights viable. Lights are incredibly powerful. They don't need to be made more viable. Firestarter is one of the most deadly mechs in the game, and if it wasn't for the Grasshopper, you would probably have one in... Well, I might have one in every lance I ever deploy. So, yeah, I feel like there's a bit of a disconnection there between what I know to be true and the public perception of lights, which is that they're rubbish and they just explode and they have no armor and all that kind of thing. And they're none of those things. Lights are absolutely vicious and deadly, and you can run them all the way to the end of the game, especially if you run the meta ones, the Firestarter, Javelin, I guess Raven as well, and you know, perhaps some of the new ones coming in Heavy Metal too. So yeah, it's one of those things. So if you are a Patreon supporter, be sure to pop onto the Patreon and let me know what you would like to see next and when Heavy Metal comes out. I've actually been in contact with the head of marketing for Snapshot Games. This is the original XCOM team, and they're currently making Phoenix Point. And I might be given Phoenix Point, which would be really cool. So I'm hoping to play that as my next non-Battletech turn-based game. That would be that interests me a huge amount because I was a massive XCOM fan back in the day, and I would love to see the team's latest TBS effort. I want to finish Spaceland because I'm really enjoying it. Sanctus Reach is nearly finished in recording, so that will be done and out of the way, and then probably Spaceland will go out intermixed with Phoenix Point if that turns up in my inbox. And in terms of Battletech, I've just not really decided what I want to do after Heavy Metal. So if you have suggestions, then please pop them onto my Patreon, and I will take all of those very seriously and put together a poll, and then, you know, you guys can vote, and then you'll decide what the next campaign is and all that kind of thing. And it's obviously, it's not that I don't care about the opinions of the loyal subscriber base, because I do. So you can certainly drop comments in the comment section of the YouTube, and I will look at all of them as well and reply, which is what I always do. It's just one of the things I try to do to reward the people that keep this channel going, is the ability to vote on future campaigns and all that kind of thing. So anyway, that is it for now. This is a huge information dump, but these are all my thoughts on what's going on around the community at the moment. And like I said at the beginning, if you have a mod or a mod pack, please drop me an email and let me know what your future plans are and all that kind of thing, probably in a month from now or 3 weeks from now. And then I will endeavor to include you here. But in terms of this community news video, I basically had to chase people to give me information, and there's a limit on how many people I can chase and how much I can just prepare by myself. So if you want to be featured, I would happily feature you. No problem. I'll talk about Battletech until my voice gives out. But yeah, you need to drop me a line. So YouTube's got an email contact. You can drop a comment. I will always reply to them. I'm all over Reddit. So yeah, talk to me. And that is it for now. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you guys next time.